podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. Builders and contractors agree that Andersen is the window and door brand with fewer callbacks. Don't let the hidden costs of callbacks, bad reviews, or racked windows ever set you back.
Vinyl windows might seem cheaper up front, but 100 series products are the sneaky value play thanks to their lasting quality. They also have a modular design for easier installs, saving you valuable time.
Fewer callbacks can lead to more 5-star reviews and can help you make sure your business is built to last. Plus, there's always Andersen's 10-year limited warranty on finish and fading on top of the Andersen Pro programs to help make your business even more resilient. For more information, head over to andersenwindows.com/pros. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. Think AI can't work for your business? Well, think again. Top builders are already using AI to put themselves ahead of the competition, and you can too.
Check out this webinar co-hosted by Buildertrend and the Association of Professional Builders, where they discuss all things AI in construction and how to get your team on board.
You'll learn how AI can streamline your workflows, reduce errors, add hours back to your day, and make your business more profitable. Plus, discover the right solutions for your business and how to customize them for your needs. Head over to buildertrend.com/MCAI to register today and skyrocket your business into the future. This podcast is brought to you by Velux. Skylights are a surprising way to add interest to a home, and we hear that homeowners are so happy after installing Velux skylights that they wish they had installed more. Velux's cut, place, and seal installation makes it easy to add natural light to your build, and innovative technology including built-in rain sensors, solar power, and 3 layers of leak protection makes skylights a great addition to any project.
Yeah, and most builders agree they're even easier to install than a vertical window while still creating an impressive space. Visit veluxusa.com/remodeler to learn more about their industry-leading installation and warranty.
Max, I was just looking up. You were on episode 84.
84. What are you on now? What episode is this?
Like 340? I think.
Yeah, I remember being in your painted black office, /closet.
Hey, now I get professional black, so.
Yeah, it's good. moving up.
I know.
That was fun.
So, Max, you were working for another big builder in Rhode Island and had a little, well, I don't want to say little because that sounds diminishing, but an architecture side hustle. When you were sitting in my painted black office, things have changed since then. What's Tidal Build?
Yeah, so since then, many things have happened, but in the last year, we've kind of transformed my little side hustle into a real architecture studio, and really in thanks to my now business partner, Matt, who was working in Virginia with a big firm there doing a lot of commercial and multifamily residential architecture. And he decided to move back here where we're all, this is our home, Stonington, Connecticut. And we decided all to link up together and create this business. So I had this big background in construction and architecture and doing, plans for friends, family, some formal clients, but mostly like word of mouth friends and family. Mm-hmm. But I never went through the proper channels to get my master's degree in architecture. So Matt really brings in this super reliable, like formal education to that part of my business from before.
And a stamp.
Yeah.
And the stamp part of doing architecture.
And a stamp.
Yeah.
So about a year ago, we all linked up and just felt like we were in the right place to start this business. And my other partner, Luke, here, has been working construction with his family. His dad was a contractor for as long as he can remember, I think.
Yeah, my dad was like 35 years. He retired this year, and he's sailing the Caribbean now. So
nice.
And passed on his knowledge and all of his tools left behind and all of his customers, which I'm forever grateful for. But
he was based in Stonington as well.
In Stonington, yeah. And we've always worked within, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes of home. So very tight-knit group of customers and long-time clients. And and again, they're being swallowed up by our business now, and keeping things rolling.
How has your father's business, was it Tidal Build? Was that your father's business or no?
No, he was self-employed. He had a couple of different business names. His first was Wood Chip, and that was like in the 90s. And then he went a little bit more professional, and that was LaBrosse Construction. And that carried us through from, I don't know, 2005 to the present. He retired like last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, aside from that, I was doing my own thing for the last few years, working with him more or less full time, and then taking on my own projects. And when Matt moved back into town, the three of us just happened to get together and decide that this was like a great way forward. Combine all of our skills and experience and make something a little grander than we could all do on our own.
Yeah, it was definitely, we kind of had a realization that we all brought something to the table, and we're all in the same field of construction and design, but had different things to bring to the table. So it really worked out well for us, and we kind of saw it as a no-brainer to get together and just combine, all of our knowledge from a previous work experience. So we're pretty lucky.
So in terms of, like, I have a handful of questions, but in terms of your father's business, you say you're forever grateful for the clients he left you. What was that transition like, or what was that passing, quote unquote, of the torch? Because, and my question is rooted in like the staying power of clients from one business owner to the next, right?
Right.
There's so I'd love to understand like what that looked like. How is your father saying, hey, my son is starting his own company, you should talk to him? Is it more formal than that?
No, it's probably even less formal than that. I mean, they probably called him needing something or other, and he said, well, I'm in Martinique now, so I can't really help. But we worked together for so long and for the same customers that basically I already had a relationship with them, and we were, a small operation. It was usually him and myself and maybe one or two other people that were working for us. But yeah,
Dockyard, her bridge.
Yeah, I basically already had the relationship with the customer, and now it was a matter of just taking over the paperwork and the responsibility of the work we're performing.
So what was the, I feel like it's difficult in our business to start a company with one person, one person holding the reins, in charge of everything. Obviously you have a little bit of a background where you were kind of running your own thing, but what was the thought behind, let's bring three people together into one business, as far as like the path forward and how you can scale that versus just being on your own?
I found it to be overwhelming. I mean, I was working for myself, I was essentially a one-man operation, and the money was good and the work was there, but it's impossible to keep up with all of the necessary, paperwork and the actual running of the business while you're working, 60 hours a week on site. So I'm more than grateful to have these two guys picking up some of that slack, and I think that between the three of us, we all have like our own designated tasks that make things a lot easier and more predictable.
It's also nice too that we came into this business really wanting to do design build, where we kind of bridge the gap between architecture and construction, and have a kind of holistic take on the project where we're in charge of and running start to finish. And that's a great way of controlling the quality too. We don't have 10 business days to respond to an RFI or something like that as it's happening, which moves projects along a lot quicker. There's not a lot of lost communication, I found. And it's nice to have three people attacking a problem than just sitting by yourself and thinking on it. So in that regard, I think that's been super successful so far with the projects we've done.
Is the goal to only be doing design work and construction work between the three of you, not bringing outside design and then not taking outside construction jobs?
No, we have a mix right now. We have just architecture jobs, just construction jobs, some design build. We've done consulting for both sides of the business as well. yeah, I mean, it's,
I think our end goal is definitely to be designing, building our own work,
Yeah.
residential, commercial, kind of anything that we could get our hands on, really. I think coming from my background where the average project was $10 million plus, and I've now stepped into this world where we're doing projects that are, much less in value. But I'm able to like carry those same standards and like traits and all the practices we did building like super high-end residential, coming back down to maybe just like a remodeling job or something. So
you're able to kind of pull from that grand scale from a design and detailing perspective and plug it into what you guys are doing now. My initial reaction to that is, I think a lot of people in this industry, grow, and they want to be doing these $10 million plus projects because there's so much detail. There's so much to it. You get to do all the fun things, and anyone that's done them is like, trust me, they are just as much, if not a bigger headache than the next one. But like Max, your experience in working for someone, a builder that's doing these $10 million plus to turning around, starting your own thing, and essentially kind of starting at, we'll just call it ground level of like projects. What is your mindset today? And is there this desire to get Tidal back to a 10 million plus type firm?
yeah, I think that desire is there for all of us, not just monetarily, but like you said, the level of detail and like the projects you get to execute at that level of money. But I think one thing I've noticed that is a struggle can be moving from clients who, maybe don't have a budget or it's not really a concern, moving into projects where it's a real concern for someone. They actually only have a set amount of money that they can spend with you. So it's a whole new set of things for me to learn in that like project management aspect. But it's also an interesting like new task to learn, to kind of keep everything as easy and uncomplicated while still following that that budget to the T.
So one of my big questions would be, and I guess I'll just come right out and say it. Obviously, you have 3 business owners, right? You're still in residential construction. You're just starting out, so that's one thing. Are you guys able to put, as far as like money goes, when you're looking at a project and it's residential construction, it's like, can this project bear the cost of 2 owners, 3 owners on it as far as budget? Are you guys able to like delineate your tasks and responsibilities enough that it's not overlapping owners working on the same project, where it's like, now we're pricing ourselves out of these projects because instead of having one owner that's pulling a majority of the income, now we have 3 partners that all need to pull equal shares and make probably more than what the employees would make? How are you guys addressing that?
One of the best things we did was to agree on even salary based on the amount of time that we can dedicate to the business. So right now, we're making a decent living. It might not be the top of our competition as far as business owners in this field, but we're making enough, and we're able to predictably expense that or to have a handle on what the business costs to run. So it dealt with a lot of like the hourly accounting and like, I did this and I did this and I need to get paid for this, and it's like it's hard to keep track of that for everybody. But when everybody's on a salary, it just makes it easy to say, just do your job and what you're responsible for, and you get paid the same amount as everybody else.
So do you guys have I would assume that you have an idea as far as volume, what you need to put into place each year to be able to pay all 3 salaries?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we're basically responsible, like Matt and Max are responsible for keeping the architecture account funded, which is where their paychecks are coming from. And I'm responsible for, more or less, and with their help, keeping the construction account funded. And that's where my paychecks come from. So between, the three of us, we all know what we're essentially bringing in and what we need to get paid. And if we want to get paid, we'll just be good at balancing those numbers.
Yeah, and we're definitely trying to not certainly overpay us and pay something reasonable to essentially get us by. But our whole goal is to invest back into the business and grow the business from the inside out. And taking high salaries at an early stage of the business isn't maybe the best idea. So we're trying to keep it a lean business and just keep reinvesting in the business. Our goal is to get into our own property development, buy some property for low, but have it be part of the LLC and fix it up and make a little bit of money doing that as well. And then it's that kind of complete control of where we are our own clients, which is always nice.
Right. And if we didn't explain it well enough, Luke is a fine finish carpenter, and he's on the tools 40 hours a week. So pretty much all of his salary is directly billable hours to clients. And I'm kind of a bridge in between. I take care of a lot of admin work, estimating, budgeting, invoicing, working with our bookkeeper. And then I'm also spending time on design work while also selling work. And then Matt is really heading up the design office here and, basically drafting with other drafters that we hire, bringing projects to completion. And so it's kind of like a circle. So I'm finding the clients, I'm helping get the design started and talked about and underway. Matt's producing drawings, and then we're handing them to Luke in the field. So as long as we can keep that circle going, I don't think we'll have any real shortage of work for us to do.
Sure, and I don't intend the question to put you in an awkward position. I'm just thinking of it from my perspective and how many people that I speak with that struggle with just paying out one owner in their business, and they're like, I don't know how to make money. And it's like, all right, well, now you add two people to that mix and what the ceiling is for what they could charge. And I'm like, well, how the heck is that going to work? And it sounds like at this point, obviously, you guys are starting out, and it's like, hey, we're gonna draw a salary. Maybe this isn't where we want to be long term, but the goal is to reinvest and put some sweat equity into this,
pretty much,
and establish a business that's vertically integrated so that you guys can continue to shoot, kind of, eat what you kill, but at the same time be able to self-sustain.
Yeah, and I think that at the end of the year, we'll be looking at what profit we can maybe take or reinvest, and then we'll have a discussion about that. But right now, it's just remaining sustainable, trying to keep the accounts funded and overfunded, and then when it comes to that quarterly or yearly moment, then we'll talk about what to do with the extra money.
Yeah, because even most, myself, I'm an owner operator, and it's like, I don't focus that much on profitability for my business, quote unquote, as much as what I'm getting paid. And I would say that from a business perspective, that mentality, that mindset obviously makes it difficult to scale, but it's I'm most concerned with making my money and not necessarily making above and beyond that for the profitability and longevity of my business. But then if I had partners, it's no, we all have to make a living. We have to do well, but then the business has to be making money as well for the partnership.
I wish when I was working for myself, I wish that I was taking a salary and then leaving the rest of the money in the business, because I found, I was more interested in what I was making every week, and it was unpredictable. And sometimes I made plenty of money, and sometimes, you come up a little short or a little off on your estimate. But it would have benefited me, even just as a single owner, to take a salary rather than to take all the profit from every job, transfer it to the personal bank.
Yeah, I mean, even when you think of a pricing perspective, looking at projects, and you're not approaching your pricing just from, hey, what am I going to make in profitability off of this, but more so a business perspective where you're an employee in that business and you're paying out, and that's the cost of doing business. But then the business is also making money on top of that, which I think not a lot of people do. The reason why it sometimes I would say that sometimes it's difficult to add all of that on top of an owner's salary, unless you're just pulling just a very fair, modest wage, and then the rest of the money staying in that business. I think that it winds up being tough to have that much profit on top of a project when you have a competitive industry where everyone else is like, well, we could do it for less.
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge.
Yeah, I think we all agreed at the beginning that that was going to be a difficult scenario, and we all kind of just had faith in each other that, if we go together, we can go really far.
Yeah.
If you go alone, you can go fast. So.
We've all been like friends since high school and for much longer than we've been in business together. So having that trust coming into the business was really helpful and made it so that, just like Max said, it was very easy to just assign responsibility and to have faith that everybody would do their part and the business would be successful as a result.
You reference accounts, like keeping accounts funded. Is that, I'm talking strategic, like financial strategy here, but is that one way that you guys are kind of understanding the business? Like you're kind of bucketing money in like the architecture account, making sure that as you're doing design, you're pulling from that. It's a super weedy question, but you reference accounts. I'm curious.
Yeah. So for the architecture account, that we send separate quotes out for that, and it's almost treated like a separate business of just the architecture. Sometimes we do go into design build contracts where we kind of lump things together. But yeah, from the architecture account, the money that goes in there, we try to keep that completely separate from the construction, and try to have that also pay for company expenses and licenses, all that kind of stuff, rent, here in the office, and just general, company expenses, and try and have enough money in the architecture account to do that. And if some money needs to be pulled from the construction account to pay shared office expenses and just general operating costs, that's fine too. But we try to all have that kind of separate. But yeah, I mean, it's been going well. It's been self-sustaining, and one of the things that I was taught is for the kind of the accounting for architects is using like a direct salary expense multiplier. So finding out what your hours are going to be on a project and seeing what our salary is and what does that multiplier look like to have profit in the company and have the project earn the business money, not just ourselves.
Right, putting the number of what you need to charge per hour.
Yeah, to cover overhead and all that. Yeah,
right.
How old are you guys?
On the construction side,
32, and 33.
Okay, so not like super young.
Old enough to know what we're doing, young enough to learn.
Perspective. I mean, I'm 38. Nick, what are you, 36?
36, yeah.
36.
So, and I'm sure, Nick, on the construction side, a construction account looks a little bit different than an office account. We have things being paid out. It's a big wave, in and out, all the time. The architecture accounting is much simpler.
Yeah,
it's kind of just a direct expense, and that's super easy to track. But on the construction side, we work on a lot of projects. We do some fixed price work, but most of our contracts are based on like a cost plus fee model, and that fee might be adjusted depending on the client.
It is. I mean, talking about construction accounting, I don't want to spend 2 hours talking about construction accounting, but it is pretty wild to think, how many transactions go in and out of a project.
Yeah.
And the wild swing of money. And I think I know it's what gets construction companies in trouble. It's like you just have these wild swings of cash. You lose track. You don't know what's yours, what's not, and it's you run into these situations where it's just it's just a mess. And the problem is that when you have 100 transactions in a week, and then you don't have time to reconcile them, by week 2 it's 200, then 3, then 4, and then it's like, how do I even catch up to this? And it's this never-ending game of trying to clean stuff up.
We and what you bookkeeper.
yeah, and that's what I was going to get at, is like, you guys are 3 individuals doing quite a bit of work and have quite a bit of responsibility across your plate. And that was my question, is who's ultimately running the books and keeping, not even just business profitability, but who's monitoring the project profitability? Or are you guys each handling your own, essentially, P&L?
I mean, as of yet, we just have a general sense of where we are on each project, and that's been fine. But it's not the way that we want to move forward. So again, having the bookkeeper spend more time delineating expenses per project, whereas in the early days of our work, we were just like sure that we were coming in under the number or at the number that we needed to be profitable. But going forward, again, it's that accountability that we've kind of passed off, or the accounting work that we passed off to our bookkeeper to try to keep us in line and give us like weekly updates, where we're at on each project.
As far as like actual personal responsibility, we have a weekly owners meeting with the 3 of us, and we look at these numbers all together, and do the transaction reconciling. Everything's kind of out in the open. So once a week we get together and we look at all the numbers for each project and talk about future upcoming projects and
what went well, what
the week ahead. Yeah. So it's a good recap, and it's a tool that we use. And I can't even really imagine like doing all that on your own, really. Having somebody to bounce that stuff off of and have a nice sounding board between the 3 of us, it makes it really easy, in my opinion, to track these projects and make sure we're on task. So.
It keeps you rational when you have 3 people talking about finances, because I know from my own experience that looking at at the accounting of my past work, it's been overwhelming. But you have 3 people that you can kind of work through the sheets with. It makes it a lot more manageable.
Yeah. So moving forward, and obviously looking for plans to grow, how, and maybe this isn't something that you've even considered or have something in place, but how do you guys move forward as you grow and as the business grows? How do you ensure that you maintain like that equal responsibility moving forward? Because I would assume as things grow, your responsibility will grow, your stake in this will grow. How do you ensure that all 3 of you grow simultaneously and equally, and that you don't get to a point where it's like, well, I'm doing 2/3 more than that person and this person? And I understand you guys have been friends for so long, and that was always my fear with a partnership. And even speaking with Nick with struggles with employees, and it's like, well, do we give somebody a stake in this? But then what happens if the stake that person has in it, they're not upholding their end of the bargain? And will that just create more issues than resolutions? Do you guys have like any sort of plan in place for that as you grow your business? Because I would assume with 3 of you and where you are now, that like the goal would be to have to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's largely based on our faith and trust in each other, that we all have an equal stake in the business. We all have an equal desire to succeed, and if somebody's slouching for one reason or another, it might just be like 1 week or 2 weeks, but it's not something that we ever foresee as being a long-term problem. We're all pretty self-motivated to.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever going to be a moment, because we do check in at least once a week, if not 3 times a week, of going over projects and just going over everything, and everything's out in the open. So there's not really at this point a lot of time for someone to not be doing work, because we're all bringing something to the table and just building the business. And if it's hey, Luke, you're slacking here, whatever, we just want to build him up and build all of ourselves up, so that it just benefits the business in the end.
I think it would be very obvious if one of us was dragging our feet. We'd be getting client phone calls between all of us, and and I think it would become apparent very quickly if one of us wasn't doing our share of the work.
Yeah.
So then you just like killed the third person.
Yeah,
like
just
they're
start having,
stagnant.
having secret meetings without.
Yeah.
Do you guys have an operating agreement in place?
We do,
Did
yeah.
you say that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we do.
It's all unanimous. I mean, if there are any big changes in the company, all three of us will have to be in agreement, and that includes if we were to, if somebody wanted to leave the business or we wanted to vote somebody out, it still has to be unanimous, or the business has to be like dissolved, essentially.
Yeah.
So
partnerships are difficult. Everyone's like, even with us, it's like, all right, everything's going to be 50-50. And everyone tells you not to have it be 50-50. It's like somebody needs more stake in it than another person. It's just, I guess it also depends on what your priorities for. And when you're looking at it from a legal perspective, often it can be different than like
33.4%. So technically,
so you're I often think, yeah, like this would be nice to have a partner, not in the podcast, but like in the business end of things.
yeah.
To have somebody with stake in it to be able to help. But then I've seen it go south a lot, and then I question, like, is it more work? Is it more difficult to build that type of business, that structure of business? And I think that's probably why a lot of people wind up just sticking it out themselves and struggling through it and having an inability to grow because they are trying to do everything on their own, and they don't have partners who have stake in the business to help move it to where it needs to be.
I think we really rely on each other to make it work.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's a big part of what makes us successful. I could think of an example even just last week. We got a lead on a new client, and I wasn't able to get there. So these two guys were able to fill in and meet with them and secure the job to go forward. So it's like super helpful. If I was on my own and I ran into that situation, you could easily lose that job because you're going to go meet with another contractor if you couldn't show up that day. So there's tons of benefits, and we haven't really found the downsides of it just yet.
Have you guys received feedback from clients that they understand you all three are partners in this, as far as that's why they elected to go with you or interview you as a design contract team?
Yeah, I think there's an appeal to kind of a upcoming, younger group versus like the established, conglomerates in our area, which are so widespread and impersonal that it's like hard to, again, develop that trust. So it's benefited us more than it's been a hindrance, I think.
And I would say too, a lot of our clients really, they talk about trust and how it's not really too much about schedule or blah, blah, blah. They want a team that they can trust, and they want a contractor they can trust and an architect they can trust. And we come showing, this is how we work. These are our projects. We're quick to respond. And we're very upfront about everything. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that. And I mean, we all trust each other. Trust is one of the most important things to us in our business. So we always appreciate when clients are looking for that too. So we can have that opportunity to show them that we're serious and that we're to be trusted. So there's a lot of contractors out there that's not so much the case.
Yeah, money is not the number one priority. And I feel like most people, or a lot of people, get caught up in the figures and the financials rather than, the fact that money will come if you, are honest with people, you do a good job, essentially, and everything else will eventually fall into place.
And the other side of the coin is that there are a lot of customers who are looking at their project from a financial perspective, but there's a lot of customers that you'll realize like they would pay more money, they would wait longer, they would jump through hoops to find somebody that they do trust, and it's not necessarily about the bottom dollar or the design where it's like, hey, we want to be able to bring a team on who's going to handle this from top to bottom, that we trust them, they trust their team, they're around our house, our family, and there's definitely something to be said for that, being able to control all the parties involved with it. When did you guys actually form your business? I know you just moved into your space. What was it, this past summer?
Yeah, we had a ribbon cutting a few weeks ago. I think it was end of August, and had a great turnout. Yeah, we officially
Coming up on 1 year, I believe
I
it
think
was
it was
like
October
mid-October.
12th. October 12th, I think,
Nice.
something around there. Yeah, and it's been going. We've already expanded our office, and now we have kind of a conference room and main office, which is where we're in now. And then we have a larger kind of more open floor plan office where there's a couple desks and flat files and that kind of thing. So yeah, we had a great turnout for the ribbon cutting. We got a citation from Heather Summers there from the Senate,
state rep
and the state representative. So we're always appreciative when people show up and have their support for us, and had a couple of jobs come out of that as well. But yeah, officially it'll be, I think, October 12th, I think, is the official start date from last year.
So how much time do you guys, how much time was spent prior to you guys actually forming the business, getting your ideas together and developing some sort of a business plan and putting all the pieces together?
I mean, we hit the ground running. We again realized that we would figure it out one way or another.
Yeah,
I had demand that people wanted to work with us.
I moved back from Virginia in August of last year, and we had an official LLC by October. So we moved pretty quickly. Yeah, we moved pretty quickly, and we knew, strike when the iron's hot. I knew coming back up here, I didn't want to work for anyone. I wanted to work for myself, and that was definitely, I think, motivation to get this thing off the ground. And I'm glad that we did that, and it seemed to work out, really well for the timing of everything. But yeah, I think the longest thing that took, or the thing that took the longest rather, is picking a name for the business.
Yeah.
We were very careful about it. I guess we had a lot of names going on, and we settled on this one. But I'm pretty happy with it.
We didn't say. We like this.
Yeah, no, we chose. We specifically chose.
What do you think was the biggest anxiety or hurdle starting the business? Was it just, how are we going to drum up leads? I know that you said that you were getting some leads from Luke's old business, but what do you think, when you sat down to say, hey, let's all get together, what was the biggest anxiety or possible failure point for the business that you foresaw?
I didn't really have much anxiety coming into it. I don't know about you guys.
No, I think
a fair amount.
Do you guys have kids? Does anyone here have kids?
I do, yeah.
Max does, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I have full confidence in these two guys and in myself. And
how about really your wife? How did she feel about it?
My wife?
Yeah.
She really trusts me in the decisions that I make. We have made a lot of good decisions together in the past. One, having a family, it's probably one of the best things I've ever done. So she trusts that I know what to do, and in that she knows both of these guys very well, and it was never a doubt in any of our minds that we were going to be successful. So it was really more just filling the shoes and getting the works. We still have no doubt that this is going to be an extremely long and successful company.
I cannot imagine having a podcast or being on a podcast with kids I was friends with in high school, let alone owning a business with them.
Yeah.
Well, it was almost out of necessity, really. In our area, there's a few really good builders that kind of everyone uses, and a lot of them have been around for 30 plus years, and they're really kind of phasing out. And not a lot of these guys are taking the kind of time and research that we take, and just specifying materials and really having cutting edge design, sustainable design, net zero. We're really into building science and really designing and building the absolute best that money can buy. And I think using that model, the customers will just come to us, and they have been. And it's been seen that people are really hoping to bridge the gap between architect and contractor, because there's so many problems from that model. When you have these designers who don't like your contractor, and then the contractor's not building the plan as it's drawn, and there's just so many miscommunications between those two parties, and a lot of animosity sometimes between the designer and the contractor. And we're just giving people this great opportunity to go ahead and skip over that and work with a licensed architect and two guys who just have a huge breadth of knowledge in construction, just coming from the type of projects that I've worked on, and also being super hands-on in the field with Luke and his father and his past experience. So we're kind of just taking this melting pot of all this knowledge from all three of us and being able to provide people with this, I guess, this design build business that just doesn't exist here. There isn't another one around.
Yeah.
Luke, are you doing any managing as well, or mostly built-on work?
Yeah, so I'll typically start my day by showing up with our contractors on whichever site we may have going at the time. I'll make sure that they have good direction for the day, they have the materials they need. If they're lacking in either department, I'll get it sorted as quickly as possible. And then I'll go, work on another job, maybe a smaller job that I'm managing, to pull off with just myself and maybe one other or two other people. And then end of the day, I go back around and make sure that everything is done, to our standards on whichever site I visited that morning. And we've had like three simultaneous jobs going at the same time that require this kind of management. So it's hard to, stay busy and stay behind the tools. But it's a welcome change. I prefer, management in a lot of cases over doing the hands-on stuff, because it's just as satisfying seeing a project come together when you're, directing rather than building sometimes.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break from the podcast and remind you to head over to moderncraftsman.co. You can find more information about us. You can download some freebies. We got a labor burden calculator as well as our pre-construction agreement up there. But most importantly is hit that subscribe button, sign up for our newsletter. This is where you're going to get all of the information behind the scenes. You're going to get information prior to podcast release. You're also going to get information on stuff that we're working on that we're just not sharing with the general public. So if you want to know more, head over, hit that subscribe button, or at least take advantage of the free downloads that we have on the website. So let's get back to the conversation.
So is the goal for you to generate enough work that you can just have a management, superintendent, PM type of role and not having to be working with your tools on, or do you enjoy that hands-on work enough that you always want to have some semblance of that in your work life?
Well, it'd be nice to get to a point where I can be selective about the work that I want to do. If it's something that I find interesting, then I'm more than happy to take on that responsibility. If it's something that I find maybe a little less exciting, then I'm more than happy to manage and direct. So we're getting to that point, very, very rapidly, I think, where I'm more managing than swinging a hammer.
Are you guys finding larger jobs coming across your plate?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've got a home being built in Ledger right now. That's pretty significant. It's not a huge, price of the project, but it's a dramatic change. We knocked down 60% of this building and we're rebuilding from foundation. So it's one of our bigger projects now, and we've got a couple more on the horizon that are 2 or 3 times the size of it.
When you say it's not as significant, like from a cost perspective, some of the things I think about, especially like in an early company, touching on what you just said, going from built on to eventually managing and hiring and things like that, is the inevitable change behind the way a project is managed. And, and in some sense, like I'm going through it right now. We have a project that we're pricing. We have a pretty strict management model. Like, this is the way we want to manage the project. Clients find it, when you communicate it, they find a lot of value in it. But in the rare case that we're being compared to someone, the guy, as many would call it, the chuck in the truck guy, right? Doesn't have any of that overhead, and he could run the job. And I want to be clear, like, chuck in the truck doesn't mean like it sucks. Like that guy could be a rock star builder, and
That
he
was
just has
my dad.
he has yeah, right, like your dad. Like he can run it. He can build an amazing house. He could even have great client experience. He's just not going to be doing a tremendous volume. And I think for me, like I think about, when I deal with this, it's like, what is the value add? So I guess for you, like you guys are in the very beginning steps of like going from, when this job isn't like very high, like significant cost. Well, that's probably because you guys operate lean and mean right now. But a year from now or 2 years from now, if that client reached out, there might be a world where you outprice that client.
Yeah.
And I guess like I'm curious that like when you're thinking about this stuff, are you in this mindset of, we need to build a portfolio, we need to kind of be aggressive with these projects, but eventually we're going to price ourselves out?
I'm not afraid of pricing ourselves out because we again have a lot of demand for our services just in the first year and doing no advertising. That it's a real luxury to be able to say, we are not able to complete this on your budget and not feel like we, are missing out on an opportunity. It's just that if the budget doesn't align with the customer, we can't do it for cheaper than what our standards allow.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you guys generating most of your leads from right now?
It's just word of mouth. I mean,
a lot of it has been word of mouth. We started out with friends and family who needed additions, porches, kitchens, remodels, decks, all that kind of stuff. But I've gotten a lot of architecture leads from people who heard about us, and I always ask, "Where'd you hear about us?" And we just Googled, a construction or architecture firm, near me. And I'm always happy to hear those, but I almost prefer the word of mouth because that means someone was happy with us enough that they told someone else,
Yeah. A lot of the leads come from just my past connections with like subs and other builders, past clients that I've worked for. Same with Luke. Just word of mouth, past clients, people in need. We get a lot of meetings. They don't always generate a job, but that meeting might generate another meeting with someone else. So it's been a lot of word of mouth, and I think as we grow, we will get more into advertising and trying to like take on bigger work from people who might not know about us right now. But I think we've found a really good place to be for the foreseeable future, where we have like a really constant flow of work, but it's not unmanageable yet.
Do you guys have any idea these word of mouth referrals, like what they entail or where they're coming from? Or another question could be, in a perfect world or an ideal world, like why are these referrals coming to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best way to put it is that we're kind of well connected in our community. We have a lot of friends and family.
We all grew up here.
Yeah.
So that certainly helps. My father's a teacher, so he's been talking us up over there. We've gotten a couple jobs and contacts from there. Oh, we're looking to do this addition, X, Y, and Z. So I mean, we joke it's a small town, but it really is, and a lot of people, the community here is rich, and the word of mouth goes a mile.
Yeah, and it might be a trope, but I think that the work kind of sells itself. People will do a significant renovation on their home, and it might be the first change in 20 years. And when it comes off and it's done well, all they want to do is talk about how great it was to work with us and how happy they are with this and that. All the nuanced parts that really come through at the end of the project.
Yeah. I guess the reason. Sorry, Nick.
Good.
The reason that I asked is I can recall, for 5-7 years when I first started my business, and having the same mindset where it's like, I'm just going to put the work out. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to develop the relationships, and I'm going to depend on word of mouth. And I've never wanted and still don't want or need volume. But it got to a point where it's like, okay, word of mouth isn't quite good enough unless the word of mouth is coming for all of the reasons that I'm saying I want to be selected, where it's like, hey, word of mouth is amazing and it's great like during the preliminary stages of your business, but even better is word of mouth because you do this, this, and this well.
Sure.
And I think that was like, when I realized that, it really switched my mindset and my business model and my marketing to realize that like my great work and the way that I treated customers and my processes, all of that was good, but I was depending on all of that to sell itself, where it's like I could be selling all of these things that make a perfect ideal client experience, client interaction, and project for me by not necessarily relying on my customers to sell that for me, but by putting things in place that I'm selling those jobs I want to, and the clients are then reiterating like my strong suits. And that was a huge marketing like switch for me that really changed my demographic to who I was selling and what type of jobs I was able to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick, I interrupted you.
That's okay. Go ahead, Luke.
I was just saying, in these word of mouth, like the social circles, there's definitely certain tiers to like the types of projects you might encounter. So I've been spending a lot of energy like trying to strike up conversations with different realtors and just heads of industry in our area that are really well connected with people who like want to do the types of projects that we want to work on. A big part of the reason why we chose this name of this company is because we really feel connected to like the coast and helping people like work their way through this big uncertain time right now of climate change. And is my coastal home safe? What can we do to keep it safe? It's my biggest asset, and there's a lot of people who aren't super knowledgeable about making the right decisions and keeping a home like that in its best possible shape. And we've been encountering, like, even just this year, extreme weather, winds and rains that are unusual, and having a really tight and well-built home is going to be like the key for some of these more wealthy people to be able to keep that asset in its top form. And that's really kind of the spiel I'm getting out there. And it's not just a spiel, we really believe it. And there's just so much actual dollar value of coastal homes in our area that they really need a steward and someone who can, really take the reins and help these people make sure that their assets are covered and just free people who really actually care about your home. And just getting that mantra out there to the realtors and, whoever, the waiters, the waitresses, the bartenders, the school bus driver, whatever, and anybody who has some sort of, face-to-face connection with the people who we want to be working for. And that's how I've kind of set out to just make sure that our word and our message is heard. So
even beyond that, Max has been reaching out, cold calling in some cases, just to say, hey, we're new in town and we're hungry. If you have anything available or anybody that's looking for our services, then we'd be more than happy to talk. And that has resulted in a couple of jobs as well. So
I think the cold calling is so underutilized because I think my experience in doing some of the cold calling or cold outreach is that when I finally make contact with some of these people, they have this predetermined understanding of who and what we do. And like I have a conversation going with an architect right now that I was doing cold outreach for through email, and finally caught him at an event, and I was like, hey, like, I want to work together. He goes, dude, you're way too expensive. I was like, what? Like, we haven't worked together. I've never priced a job for you. Like, he's like, yeah, but the word on the street, like, I see the stuff you do on social media. Like, I know that that's going to be above and beyond any of our clients. And there's like part of me that like, that's cool. Like, I really want to work with this guy, but he's saying I'm like too expensive. But the other part of me is like, yeah, but give me a shot, because sure, the stuff I'm promoting on social media and the stuff that I want to be doing is $1,000 a foot. But if your budget's $700, okay, well, let's figure that out. You're like, it doesn't mean I can't do it. It might mean that we have to adjust our process in efforts to, like, because ultimately, like, I look at it as if someone needs us to be more competitive, let us try to get more competitive for the mutual benefit of working together.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to become competitive with ourselves or our pricing if it's just one-sided reward. But if it's a mutual, you know, if it's mutually rewarding, then shit, like, that's the investment we put into this. This is why we do what we do. This is why we take risk. This is why we invest. This is how construction companies invest.
Sure. Yeah.
And, you know, but my point is like, I think that predetermined understanding of, you know, what a particular company is, like, that's something that you battle and you face, where it's like, in the beginning, you know, everyone's throwing stuff at you and you kind of go in this circular momentum up, and then all of a sudden you're like past the people that you wanted to work with because you've kind of outgrown them without ever even working with them.
Yeah, sure.
And it's like, yeah, but I can come back down. Just give me the opportunity. Yeah.
I mean, that's a conversation that we've been having with our subcontractors as well. It's like, you know, the mutual relationship that we're trying to develop, and being like realistic about price. So if you guys want to be our painters or you guys want to be our framers, then give us a reasonable price. We'll pass it on, and, you know, full transparency with the customer, but everybody stays busy, and then you guys get first look at any of our projects. You know, no hard feelings. It's all business. If you get money somewhere else, then go get money. But we're trying to, you know, actively develop that kind of relationship and you know, not price ourselves out of projects.
The one thing I'll push back on there is, you know, like, that's all fine. Like, everyone should put a little skin in to build these relationships, but especially when it comes to trades, and I feel the same way, like, about an architect or a client working with us. But when I think of subcontractors and trade partners, yeah, I do want a competitive price. I do want your best price, but I don't want you to do it with the notion that I'm just going to be like every other jerk.
Right.
Like, give me a good price, but tell me how I can be a good general contractor for you. Yeah. I've used the example of painters. It's like, you know, the pricing of any subcontractor now is the basis of their expectation when they show up on a job. And if a painter always shows up and there's always a wood floor guy in his way, he's pricing every job with the expectation that the wood floor guy is going to be there. So he gives you a price for, you know, 120 grand to paint the whole house, you know, and I've went back and said, hey, is there anything I can do to shrink this cost? And he's like, sure. If you can guarantee that I have the house by myself and there's no trades in it, I can do it for 100. Yeah. And in that example, I said, fine, I'll sign the agreement saying I'll pay you 100. And if I don't give you the house to yourself, you can change order me for the 20 grand. And so that puts the risk on me, but now I'm being a good steward to my client, where it's like I'm getting competitive pricing, but it's not because I want him, like, or he wants to work with me, or he wants first look at my projects. It's because we've now had this discussion on how do we both become efficient with one another? How do I become a good GC? How do you perform at your best?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And going forward, that should, I think, be on the top of our minds when we talk with our subcontractors. It's like, you know, how do we not only keep it affordable for the customer, but how do we make your job easy? You know, what do you need from us to really cut that expense down, cut your headache down?
It's
right.
It still brings me back to hopefully it will be a successful process when we're designing and building a new home, and we can bring these people in as consultants, plumbers, electricians, etc., in the design process, so that when we get on site, you know, their bid is their bid, and they understand the scope of work because we use them to create the scope of work. So it should be really helpful in estimating and budgeting, and in turn giving a fair price to the client, if we can, you know, kind of model ourselves in that way to have even a painter signed on ahead of time, you know, before the project is even started. So it could be a really interesting way to, you know, take what you were saying, but almost take it to the next level where, you know, your bid is part of the design. You know, we understand how you work. So.
Yeah. You know, I talked about this, and forgive me, anyone that's heard me talk about this the last couple podcasts, but, you know, I had an example recently with the HVAC, but I'll start by saying there's always this understanding that, you know, these older builders or people that have been doing it a lot longer, like they can be more competitive with pricing, or they can build a house for less money. And some of the young guys, like, it just becomes more and more expensive. And I've always had a hard time understanding that, where it's like, I build a house, I know what it costs me, I know what the hard costs are, and then this guy over here builds the same house and he's doing it for 5-10% less. And it's like, yeah, he's got good relationships with the trades. When the reality is, it's not that. He just knows what questions to ask and where to question the process. And the example I have recently is, you know, our windows on our Wellesley project. You know, the windows were spec'd. They were ordered, period. Then we start talking about the HVAC, and the HVAC system's coming back oversized and super expensive. And we kept going around and around as to like, all right, and there was never a question as to why. It was just like, all right, what size equipment do we need to use? You know, what's this going to do? And then finally the question came up. It's like, why is it so big? And it's like, well, you know, the windows on the back side of the house, you know, if you change the solar heat gain coefficient, we could reduce the cooling load.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, so let's change the windows. And it was like, oh, well, you know, it was like, it's like it didn't exist. It's like they were putting this into an existing house, and that option didn't exist. And for an $8,000 change to the glass, reduced the equipment size by 50%.
Wow.
And it was just because the question got asked. And to think that like we had the same exact situation happen on another project recently. Same thing, HVAC, windows, like they already assumed that the windows were ordered or in, or like it wasn't part of the overall process. And I think like this is what people talk about when they say experience matters, because when you experience that, then you realize, here's my opportunity. It's like, wait a second, HVAC is trending over budget. The windows impact that. Let's see if we can bring them together and then collaborate and find out, you know, okay, well, you can't change the windows to be super efficient, because then you're going to spend too much money on windows.
Sure. Yeah.
So how do you find that balance without both of them being, you know, high? And, you know, and that's like, and I think that's what's rooted in that understanding that experience is what is the difference between, you know, a builder and a great builder.
Sure.
While you guys are, obviously you all have your separate experience, but you are new to your new model. In the business that you're doing. And Nick and I have been working the past couple of months on creating some coursework for the podcast. And our first course is going to come out here shortly, but it's on pre-construction. And a lot of what we learned that I've been able to reflect on conversations that we had, or even the conversation that we're having now about what you guys are doing. And one thing in this course that we discuss is creating a value proposition for your business. And I think that if I would have known that earlier on in my career, and understanding what I do well and what I can offer that other people are not willing to offer, it would be so important for me. And I think it would have shaved off years of progress and banging my head against the wall to get me closer to where I wanted to be. And it seems that would be the case for you guys too, where you have a business model that's so unique and so different than most other people in the industry, let alone your area. And I think that does offer you guys so many unique and differentiating benefits, that once you understand the full capacity of what the three of you can do as business owners in one business, and how that separates you from your competition, and what services and level of execution and processes and systems you can integrate that other people don't have the ability to, I think you'll realize that your value proposition is so strong, and so much different than any other people, that if you do things the right way, you should not have to compete with many people in your market, because there's not many companies structured the way that you are. What you have to do is you have to figure out what that client looks like, and what your services look like, to be able to fit the needs of that specific client. But you guys are in a position where it's like, hey, there's pros and cons to the way that we're set up, but you have to play to your strong suit and you have to play to your strong hand and realize that, like, yeah, what you're doing is very unique and there's a very specific customer for that. And not many people will be able to suit those customers' needs as well as you are. So that would definitely be some advice to you. I know you were just speaking, Max, to the pre-construction and being able to bring your subs in for pre-construction. It's like you guys already have all the pieces in place to be able to do that. You don't need to wait 5 years to do that. You don't need to wait to get the project where it's like, hey, we're going to design to complete this. You can pull it. You can bring an off-the-shelf design or bring a design for another contractor or a designer and serve as a consultant for these clients and use your in-house design and all of your experience to offer pre-construction or just, guarantee pricing through pre-construction for all of these potential leads, that, again, I don't think many other people in the industry, let alone your area, are going to be able to compete with you in that regard.
Yeah, that's well received. I hadn't thought of it in that scope, but it really is, a benefit to us to be flexible and to have this kind of combined experience and capability.
Yeah, and that's why, like, even the thinking about the word of mouth and, like, this is all intended to be, like, is hopefully as useful information to you as possible. And if it's not, you can write it off or do with it what you will. But it's like, I relied on word of mouth for so long, but I realized that all of the word of mouth was based on, like, the customer's program and what was important to them. And I wasn't actually selling on many of those projects what was important to me as a business and what made me a successful business. So all the word of mouth referrals, although they were great and they're better than just a random lead that comes in, they still weren't for the reasons that I wanted. They weren't for the reasons that made me the most profitable, the most successful. So it's not until, like, the word of mouth leads start coming and they're coming for the reasons that you guys have basically determined, that the word of mouth referrals are like, all right, we're set at this point, right? Because now every lead that comes in is exactly the project that we want, the type of customer that we want, but you guys have to curate that through obviously conceding on projects and building your portfolio and establishing yourselves. But you can't just, like, sit back and be like, word of mouth is the end all be all if it's not curated, telling the exact story and defining your customer, and really creating that funnel that's distilling it down to, hey, now this is our word of mouth that's super valuable to us because it speaks to everything that we are successful with as a business.
I've really looked up to Nick in, like, the past 10 years and what you've been able to do. Since I first met you, it's almost been 10 years now, which is crazy in, like, the amount of growth that you've done, like, not just in, like, the size of projects, but how you're curating the work that you're getting and the way you're marketing it just is a real good model for any contractor. And not that we would be copying what you do with social media or anything like that. I don't think we'd have the capability to do that, but just showcasing the highest of quality is something we all agreed on from the beginning. And I think that really just is going to be what lets us choose those clients, as you were saying, Tyler. It is just so that people understand that we're not going to say no to your pressure treated deck project, but we might want to try to sell you on using a better product, something like that.
It's such an interesting balance because it's like it's from a marketing perspective, you basically have to have this ongoing conversation where you're just you're just constantly reminding them, like, hey, we want to do the craziest stuff or use the highest level product, but we can still execute a basic product. And, and that it's interesting. And, like, social media, I think, has helped and hurt in this side. It's helped us promote the best of the best, the highest level product, but it's hurt us in the sense that when there is a more vanilla project, people just don't even ask us. And in the grand scheme of things, like, that might be okay, right? Like, you might have a great lead flow, but when you don't have great lead flow, or you need to backfill, or you know, bring additional cash or revenue into your company, those vanilla projects are great, because you can have great margins, you can go in and execute them really well, but it's almost as though you've turned that hose off, and then you try to turn it back on, and they're all going somewhere else.
Yeah. There's something to be cautious of, you know, like you said.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, this is firsthand experience. Like, it's exactly where, you know, it's something that I'm navigating right now. Like, to be totally honest with you, it's like, we have amazing projects. We have some really cool stuff. We're promoting the hell out of the coolest of the cool, but then I'm chasing down some other stuff, because, you know, we want a higher lead flow. We want more we want to generate more revenue. We need, you know, there's times where we need to keep our guys busy. We currently have a slot in our schedule that we're trying to fill. And, you know, and it's not something that is a year away where we would spend a ton of pre-con on. It's like, hey, we're ready to roll.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you got a smaller renovation project, we can plug in and knock it out for you and do a great job. And it doesn't have to be this, you know, overly, or I shouldn't say overly, but like this you know, more complicated process. We can just plug in and get it done for you.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to be in that space where it's like you're constantly curating your conversation. I mean, right before this podcast, I actually reached out to an architect because they do really cool work, and I was like, oh, they oftentimes have some smaller renovation projects. They'd be a great one to see if they have anything sitting on their desk. And he responded, he goes, from my recollection, I think your work is too high level craftsmanship and expensive for our typical client.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was his response.
Yeah.
And I was like, your recollection's probably pretty accurate based on what I told you last time, but let me kind of restructure this conversation. I want to work with you. I think you do really cool stuff. So if I have to adjust or like figure out a way to do that, going back to my point a couple minutes ago, it's like, this is an investment into our mutual relationship.
Yeah, sure.
You know, we're still going to make the margin that we need to, but maybe we're using a different product, or maybe we're executing it a little bit differently, or we don't have our typical management structure on it. But that's the investment, or the quote unquote risk, that we're willing to take in order to get this done.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, it's not so much a word of caution. It's just something to consider as you do grow, and kind of, like I said, you know, for anyone that's not watching, I'm like going up in this coil, kind of like a coil spring. Like you're going up and up and up and up, and you start, you know, you get to the top where it's, you know, there's a lot less up there than there is in the middle.
Yeah.
It's funny because I can recall first being in business, and you look at all the builders in your area, all the contractors in your area, and thinking like, I have to put things in place to reach their level so that I can get the jobs that they get. And then like it gets to a point where you're there, or you surpass that, and you start realizing, hey, I need to do things differently so that I'm not in the same boat as them again, so that the conversation isn't between me and them, it's just focused on me. And I think that you guys are at that early point in your career where it's like, what do we do well? Like, what can we offer our customers that other people don't, and why are people going to hire us? And I think that it's going to take time to get there, to realize like what your offerings are and what type of value you can bring to the table, and who you should be selling to. And I think that the sooner you guys figure that out, your business will definitely, not that it hasn't take off, but it'll take off in the direction that you guys want it to. You know, the leads will seem to be better fit. You'll be getting to do the jobs that you want to, saying no to more projects, and building the business that you guys somewhat envision in your head. It's tough when you first start in business. Like, trying to figure out where you live, what's profitable, how to pay the bills, like what things cost, what things should take. And even with experience, it just seems like a lot of stuff, you're still making a lot of shit up.
Yeah.
Sure. Where it's like, yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for so long, but I feel like I'm still just making this up. Like this isn't like right or wrong.
It's like being a parent. I'm like, the older my kids get, the more I realize that my parents had no idea what they were doing. Because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Just throwing shit against the wall and see if it sticks.
The other day I said to Meg, I was like, it's so weird to me that I have children. Like just like not like just the fact that those are my kids and that I'm like a dad, that's weird to me. Yeah. And I don't know if I will ever not feel weird. And it's the same as being in business. It's like Tyler's exactly right. It's, that's part of being a business owner, is that it's you're constantly figuring it out. You're constantly adapting and changing and reacting. And like, guys, kudos to you. Like partnerships, I'm part of a handful. They're difficult regardless of the relationship personally, because, it's whether one person feels as though they're not working hard enough or the other person feels as though that person's not like it. There's inevitably going to be that feeling at one point or the other. Like that's just like, that's the nature. It's like construction. It's up and down. It's busy. It's slow. It's busy. It's like, there's a lot, there's a little. So, for you guys to step into a partnership 3 ways, like, and play off each other's strengths and seemingly you've went into this with a plan. And I mean, an operating agreement is, as silly as that sounds, like that's a step above most partnerships, right? Like a lot of guys just sit around and just work. And then when there is an issue, like no one knows how to resolve it. Right. But I like the way that you guys kind of put your heads together and said, we're going to divide and conquer. These are your roles and responsibilities. And I think regardless whether it's a partnership or an operations team or, just a couple employees, working together with the owner of the company, it's having an understanding of what everyone's responsible for and then giving them the accountability to be responsible for it is paramount into the success of the business.
Yeah, very much agreed. And right now we're looking at like a lot of work for us all individually, and we're trying to see how we can distribute that workload to new employees. We need a lead carpenter. Matt needs ideally a drafter that can sit in the office with him so that they can be more productive together. Max needs another project manager as we continue to grow, so that he can spend more time doing customer acquisition, managing our existing projects. And it's just a matter of finding people that that we can trust and that have the same kind of drive to get things done and really help us succeed.
Yeah, it's like I feel you look at it in one light and it's like, okay, there's challenges being 3 owners in one business, but then on the other side of the coin, there's definite positives to that, where you can say, hey, and it looks like you guys are doing that right now, but it's almost as though you're running 3 separate businesses under one umbrella. And I would say that, like, especially as you're moving forward, that's the way to go, because you're all kind of, eating whatever you shoot. So you're all responsible for providing the income for each other. And I think with that respect, as you grow this business, you'll have 3 viable businesses in one that you can expand upon and you can grow. And then, like, the benefit of that is that you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket, and the ebbs and flows of construction and design, you guys will all have each other's backs, and be able to spread a lot of those issues and struggles against 3 different people and 3 different businesses, which will make it much easier to succeed. It's a really neat model you guys have going on. I think that I would probably kill my 2 other partners That's just
That's
me. That's
twice
why
you've talked about murder.
That's why I work by myself.
We're gonna have to classify this episode as a murder mystery.
Yeah, murder
podcast.
mystery.
This is true crime now.
But it's interesting. Like, it's nothing I ever considered. And then the more that I speak about it, and I'm sitting here like jotting down notes and thinking through this and the dynamic of it in my head. And I'm like, it presents a ton of opportunities for you guys and a ton of differentiation and like so many different ways that you guys can succeed and capitalize on the market that you're in.
Just thinking now, I think that one opportunity that we haven't even discussed would be trying to develop a better relationship with the builders that are in town that are, absolutely crushed and like have so much work going on that it's difficult for them to keep up with. Maybe we can step in and just say, look, we want to manage your projects and we want to help you by taking that, workload away from you. It's still your people, it's still your work, and you're still, number one contact with the customer. But if we can make your life easy, why shouldn't we work together?
It's funny you mentioned your first classes on pre-construction, because that's something I've had several builders reach out to me for. I just have a huge background in doing really good estimates, and pre-construction is probably like just as important as executing the work.
Yep.
It sets the expectation and the tone for the entire job. If you're walking into a 2 to 3 year long project and you haven't really done your due diligence and your homework before starting that job, you're just going to have a really bad time for the next 2 years. It's going to be constant struggles and constant fighting with the owner. It's so good to just have a really good grip on what needs to be done. And coming from someone who's been on the tools, on the bags, like I came up as a carpenter starting from when I was like 16 years old. So since then, I've held almost every position in construction. And when I do an estimate, I'm able to like read the set of plans as a story, like as a book almost, and I can look at those drawings and kind of, pick apart each day. Like the first day I show up on site to tear down the house and set up the job trailer, and I got to wait there for the Cox guy to hook up the cable. I mean, if you can account for all these little things that are, unknown to a lot of builders, then it's going to put you in a better position. I remember Nick telling me about, your estimates and how detailed they are and how you have a labor line under each item, even subcontractor items. I believe you said you have an in-house labor line on a lot of lines in your estimates, and that's super needed, because if you don't estimate for someone to cut out the holes in the wood floor for the vents, your wood floor guy's going to charge you on that. But going back to if you didn't hire the HVAC guy to do a mechanical plan, you don't know how many holes you need to cut in that floor. So it's something that's super difficult to estimate. But if you can take the time in pre-construction to understand all these unknowns, then you're just going to come out on top. And you might come in with a higher number to the client, but then you're going to be able to back that up, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I think, what you just touched on is going back to what I said earlier, like the whole experience, right? Like once you get charged for cutting out the HVAC holes from your wood floor guy, like experience tells you, okay, next time I need to make sure I buy that with the subfloor, like the wood floor guy. But, in the benefit of pre-construction is that I always say it's building the project on paper before you build the project. And that's exactly what it is. Like I do the same thing. I tell this story, and my story is based on my estimate sheet by division, which is more or less stacked in the order of how that stuff goes together. And it's exactly that. It's like, all right, what am I doing when I demo? It's like, oh, I need a, beyond the demo part. Oh, I need water. I need this. I need that. And it's like, then you're throwing all this stuff down and you're catching, basically the steps in which would otherwise just naturally unfold. So, it's giving you this opportunity to kind of expedite your experience in it, because in theory, like I said, you're building the project, theoretically on paper. So by the time you go to actually build the project, it's your second go around.
Yeah. Sure. And you have a basis to manage that project off of. You've done the feasibility and the due diligence, and not to say that that's the way that the project's going to go, but at least you have something to back it off against, where it's like, hey, this is what we agreed upon. This is the scope. This is what we budgeted towards everything. now we can at least base how we're going to tackle this project on that, bring the customer in, they can make the decisions that they need to. We cover our ass, we guarantee our profitability. I mean, you guys have a huge benefit with the 3 people that you have involved with your projects who all have stake in it to be able to offer something like that, which not many people do, especially not high level. And that's something that you guys will definitely be able to sell and differentiate, and it'll just put you in a league somewhat of your own that you know most people won't be able to do, or just don't have the patience to do.
I remember back in what did you say was episode 84? I think we talked a lot back then about how it was unique that I was estimating and then managing the project right afterwards. So like you said, in your head, you're building it on paper and then you're building it for real life. And with Tidal Build, we're even taking it a step further where I can be involved in the design, the estimate, and the construction. So like you have your hand on the project, like from day one, from when it's just an idea in someone's head, before any technical details are sorted or any specifics about the job are out there. Like you're understanding what this project's going to be at its very earliest origins, and it's a super valuable thing that we can pass on to the customer. And that's kind of what this is all about, like just consolidating and combining all these aspects of construction into just like a one-stop shop.
Yeah, and what'll probably happen with you is you guys, that will be something that is more or less passed on initially. And I would just say, as you refine your processes and as you build your reputation and your business, look into that as like a completely separate consulting type of business, type of asset to your company, where it's like that's not included with your construction contract. That's more on the design end of things, where it's like, here's our entire pre-construction package, which also includes all of the budgeting, the schedule, the scope. And I think that that's where you guys will be truly successful. I think that you're going to have to develop that and figure out how to work that and integrate that into your leads. And I think you'll probably have to concede some time as you develop those systems. But as you progress there, I would say that that's going to be like a huge asset to your company that you can sell.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
Where are you guys, in terms of where you guys will work, like what's your geographic range right now?
We're very lucky. I mean, we haven't had to expand farther than maybe 20 or 30 minutes outside of Stonington. We've got a couple of projects, lined up in Rhode Island, mostly southern Rhode Island, and then we're going, as far as like maybe New London, but it's not very far.
Yeah, we have, I think our furthest away jobs are about an hour, and we have a few jobs on Block Island where we're doing architectural services. So just getting over there, I guess, is the...
Construction-wise, I doubt we'd want to ever go further than like 30, 40 miles away.
Yeah.
Architecture-wise, we'd be willing to design anything, anywhere in the world, really. That would be exciting to take on design projects in different parts of the world, different climates, and we're totally open to that. But construction-wise, for the time being, we definitely don't have the bandwidth to take on projects that are hours away.
Yeah, we need company cars and a company gas card, and then we can start, expanding the limits of our work.
Yeah, it's nice to have close proximity projects so that Luke and Max and even myself for site visits, we can bounce around on projects and not spread too thin with just transporting ourselves and to different sites. But
we are lucky geographically where we decided to start this company, because there's several areas and neighborhoods around here that are, really in the high-end market, probably closer to what you're doing in like the Metro West area, really similar demographic of climate in this area.
And the climate is pretty harsh. I mean, all these historic homes need a lot of work, and when somebody wants to expand or renovate, it's a complicated and usually pretty significant endeavor. So we've got a lot of local work just based on our skill and experience in doing this type of construction as well.
Smart.
That's awesome. So for the leads that are not word of mouth, if somebody wanted to find you guys, where would the best place be to do so?
Yeah, you can find us online at tidal-build.com. We're working on search engine optimization, but that's not been a priority as of late. But
we're on Instagram
for improvement.
at Tidal Build.
Yep, Instagram at Tidal Build. I know the Google has been working, where you just type in Tidal Build and it links to our website.
Yeah, you guys popped right up.
Yeah, good. That's what we want to hear. But yeah, for a website and social media, we're posting new stuff all the time and stories, kind of taking through the projects. One of our recent posts, it was the rendering of a front porch project, and then kind of a slideshow of all the construction phases up until the final completion, and all taken from the same angle. Same with the rendering, so it was from rendering to reality, and it was a nice kind of portfolio piece to show how we plan for everything, and we have all these kind of phases of construction, and showing the complete project is nice to see. So yeah, we're posting, we're interactive, updating the website, all that.
It's hard to develop that kind of internet presence or social media presence, but we're
it's a grind.
We're following your example and trying to get ourselves out there. We've also got a great location. The architectural office is right on West Main Street in downtown Mystic. We've got a view of the drawbridge and
that's awesome.
Right next to Mystic
3x4 sign, that gets a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of building our social media presence, and eventually we're going to do some local advertising and just try to
we put ourselves in the Groton Long Point is right around the corner here, and that's kind of a small tight-knit community, and so they do a brochure every summer of all these new businesses and advertising and who to call. So we put an ad in there, and the Chamber of Commerce, we joined with them the other day. That they helped us facilitate the ribbon cutting, and they cross-posted with us. So
that went out on their email chain that hit I don't know how many thousand.
Yeah, thousands of people. So they all got heard the news. So
that's awesome.
Matt's working on right now designing a project that's a really high exposure area. It's a commercial project, a new restaurant rooftop deck, looking out views of Narragansett Sound and out to Fisher's Island Sound. So
yeah,
it's going to be a really great project for us, and we're excited to start it. And it's super high exposure on a very busy road. So I think, maybe even just having the big Tidal Build sign out in front of that is going to generate quite a bit of buzz. And it's a locally well-known building, and a lot of people will be excited for us to do that project.
Yeah, it's always nice putting the T sign out when you're finishing up a project of we were here and this is our work, and being proud of that is something special.
That's awesome. Well, congrats, guys. I appreciate you guys all being on here and chatting through your story, and excited to see what you guys build, and I'll be following along.
Yeah, it was fun to reconnect. I guess we'll do it every 6 years.
That sounds great.
Reach out to us, and we'll be available in the future.
Yeah, this has been great.
Will do.
Yeah, cool, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I can't believe it's been 6 years. But
I know. I was just all right, another 6 years, I'll be 44.
I don't want to think about that.
That seems old.
Partnerships are tricky, but it's clear that they have it or at least it appears as though they have figured it out. I'm not saying that in against them. It's just they seem to have went into it with a clear understanding of what everyone's doing, and I think that is the number one issue with partnerships, is that you form these partnerships and then it's like, well, who does what is your responsibility versus mine, and then when you do have ownership, it's a little different than just being an employee. I shouldn't say that. It's a lot of different than being an employee. So
yeah, realistically, it would be great to be able to support that, a partnership or a multiple partnership within residential construction. There's just a lot of times constraints that prevent us from doing that. And most of it is just, clients you'd have to support a lot of work and the volume of work, or be able to dip your hands in multiple trades like they are, right, with the design, management, and then bridging between the two. But it's hard for customers to bear that overhead without volume, or just the integration of the business throughout different fields. So it's nice to see. I mean, there's many times in my career where it's like, I wish that I had somebody who had some stake in this that I could lean on, that could help get through this. So I think it's great. That would be amazing to be able to do with 3 of your buddies or 2 of your other buddies in the town and working around your area that you grew up in. It's a really cool opportunity that they have.
Yeah. Well, not to cut this short, but I got 1% on my laptop. Somehow it ran through 100% battery on that episode. But guys, check out moderncraftsman.co. Hit the extras tab. We got some downloadables in there. The pre-construction agreement that we talked about in this podcast is available to download. Just fill in your email and we will email it to you immediately. And we got some other goodies on there. And as Tyler mentioned, we got the pre-construction course. And by the time this podcast goes live, we will likely be soft launching it. And what that means is that if you're part of our email list, which you need to sign up for on our website, you will get that soft launch notification. So if you want more information, head over to our website, moderncraftsman.co. You know what to do. We'll see you next week.